You've seen the thumbnail, you've read the heading, you're here for a reason, which I am slightly dreading. But since you are here, let's not make you any more mad by wasting any more of your time and jump straight to the topic and tell you why Lionel Messi cannot be considered the greatest of all time. Let's roll on. Okay, so for the sake of this video having some sort of structure, I'm just gonna go with the 4 names most commonly used by fans: Pele, Maradona, Messi, Ronaldo, and assess the individual cases one by one. But I'm just saying that's not my personal top 4. They're just the names that I usually throw around the most. And it's weird because out of the 4, you'd probably expect each of them to present their own unique arguments to be the GOAT, but that's not actually the case. Don't believe me? Well, let's look at the cases of each of these gentlemen in being the GOAT. So we're going to start with Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, out of the 4, Ronaldo's case is probably the most built off his accomplishments as an individual player rather than collective success. Now by that, I'm not just pointing to the fact that he's the greatest goal scorer in history or anything like that. But you see what I mean is, unlike the other 3 gentlemen whose trophy cabinets play a much heavier role in building their cases, for Ronaldo it was more what he was able to do with himself. For example, he went from becoming arguably the greatest winger of all time to arguably the greatest forward of all time. He became the best in the world while in England as a flair player at a time when English football was notorious for kicking the crap out of these type of guys. He then went on to win multiple Champions League titles with Real Madrid at a time they just had 5 second round exits in a row when he first got there. He won the Golden Boot with Juventus when Juve hadn't had a Golden Boot winner in almost a decade and a half. He won the European Championships with a country who'd never won a trophy in 95 years of having a football team. That's just what he does, because you see, regardless of the controversies, clashes or collisions caused by his colleagues, coaches or other cronies in the camp, when his club or country counted on him to carry or come in clutch, Chris climbed above the chaos and executed the comeback in cold and clinical manner almost every time. And that is his case. And I think it's fair to say that there's no one else at his level with a similar case to him that has as strong of a case as him. And to be honest, not by a long shot. I mean, the closest person I can think of is Zlatan Ibrahimovic, but regardless of what he tells you, he's nowhere near the GOAT category. Either way, let's move back up to the GOAT category and move on to our next candidate, Mr. Diego Armando Maradona. Now, out of the 4, I'd say El Diego is the choice of the romantic. Pretty much all of his cases are either based on aesthetics or having a captivating story. From him being probably the most impossibly talented player on this list, to him winning the World Cup as close to single-handedly as one possibly can, to him probably looking least like an actual athlete, to even some of his troubles off the pitch. The man was a true outlaw. But an outlaw who somehow reached the pinnacle of football. And that is his case. And yes, while we have had a couple of others, I do believe it's fair to say that, much like CR7 with his case, there's no one else with a similar case to Maradona that poses as strong of a case as Maradona. Simply put, at the GOAT level, El Diego is the king of the Mavericks. Now let's move on to Messi, the man who many say was Maradona's successor. And to be fair, in terms of aesthetics on the pitch, yeah, but in terms of his case for being the greatest, it's completely different. Because you see, with Messi, his case of being the greatest has nothing to do with him dominating different territories or defying the odds like Cristiano, nor does it have anything to do with him being an outlaw with unbelievable ability like Maradona. With Messi, it's the fact that, yes, he has Maradona-like ability, which he has successfully combined with the fact that he's basically completed football. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean he's the greatest of all time, just means he's had the most complete career. But that is where the link is. Having a complete career is primarily what Messi's case is built on. He's an elite forward with amazing natural ability and, unlike his spiritual predecessor, has pretty much won every trophy in football. And therefore, needless to say, that's a pretty strong case. Just not the strongest. Why? Well, to answer that, we have to move on to our 4th GOAT candidate of this video, the king himself, Mr. Edison Arantes de Nascimento. Okay, so for obvious reasons, Messi is most often compared to Maradona, but if you really do your research, he shares far more career parallels with Pele. And to be fair, I have a clip lined up, just listen to this. Oh, but first here's a warning, if there's any of you out there who doubt that I'm not old enough to watch Pele, well, prepare to look foolish as you're about to have all those doubts erased from your mind, cause, well, clearly I recorded the audio in this via 1950s walkie-talkie. Pele and Messi have had a very similar career path. Both spent the majority of their careers at the club they came through, becoming the all-time top scorer of that club, winning everything with that club, and then moving to a piss-poor league near the end. And no, shut up about Messi playing in the top team. Football back then was different. The European Cup was still at its infancy, and players from countries such as Argentina and Brazil usually stayed in that region of the world. So not only is that argument out of the window, but on top of that, one, on an individual level, Pele could do everything Messi does and more, considering he was actually elite in the air despite only being an inch taller. And two, unlike Messi, Pele didn't waltz into a team who were on the course to win back-to-back league titles and the Continental Cup. He was the product of a pretty average club, which he then went on to transform into a global powerhouse. So, seriously, there is no competition on those levels. And you see, this is a very common misconception. Most non-70-plus-year-old fans and or non-football historians usually just assume that Pele's case of being the GOAT solely stems from him winning 3 World Cups. But in reality, that isn't the case. Instead, Pele's case actually comes from, and do stop me when this starts sounding familiar by the way, the fact that he was an elite all-round forward with amazing ability, which he then, yes, combined it by completing football. And yes, that's the thing. When it comes to making cases for being the GOAT, while CR7 and El Diego have their own individual cases, for Pele and Messi is basically the same, with Pele's being stronger. And what that basically means is, any reason why you wish to crown Messi as the greatest, Pele most probably hasn't beat. So, to get around that issue, emotionally unstable Messi fans online either do one of the two things. Number one, randomly start talking about Ronaldo, okay. Or two, try to make it out as if Pele not playing in Europe hurts his case. And well, as I've alluded to in the clip, that's just how football was back then. Players from Argentina and Brazil usually stayed in South America, while players from places like England and Spain usually stayed in Europe. So again, irrelevant. Cause, as I also alluded to in the clip, Pele just had it harder from the get-go. E.g., Messi walked into a team who were on the verge of winning back-to-back league titles as well as the Champions League, and then went on to dominate football with them himself, while Pele basically walked into a completely unknown team and went on to dominate football with them himself. Messi was an all-round elite forward who can score and assist. Pele was an all-round elite forward who can score and assist, as well as use his weak foot and head amongst everything else. And finally, Messi won the World Cup. Pele has won 3. So genuinely, I don't see in any way you can put Messi above Pele. As I said, with Maradona and CR7, you can get together and compare and contrast their cases and have that conversation. But with Messi, he and Pele's case is basically exactly the same, but one is clearly stronger. And therefore, Leo for me cannot be considered the GOAT. Unless two things happen. Number one, you can make a case for Messi that is completely different to Pele's, and do let me know if you can, by the way, because clearly that has escaped me. Or two, you use that one argument that no one can refute, and that's simply Messi is the greatest because you enjoy watching him more. I've said this before, man, it really is all about opinions at the end of the day. And if you do outright admit that this is all just your personal bias, brother, you can call Ansu Fati the greatest of all time, and even then no one can really argue with you. But this video was just me trying to be as objective as I can while assessing the cases of the 4 most commonly touted GOATs. And having done that, this is my conclusion. For the reasons people claim CR7 is the greatest, he is unmatched. For the reasons people claim Maradona is the greatest, he is unmatched. But for the reasons people claim Messi is the greatest, not only is he matched, but truth be told, he is outmatched. Though of course there's nothing to be ashamed of there considering the personnel involved. After all, if you are going to be bettered by someone, who better to be bettered by than the king himself? And that is that. Agree or disagree beats indifference. Once again, don't forget to like, comment and share, and of course subscribe. Till next time, you keep rolling.